Hey there, welcome back to the show. I'm thrilled to have you here because today we're diving into a topic that I know so many of you have struggled with: marketing overwhelm. Yeah, that feeling of juggling social media posts, newsletters, engagement, and on and on. It can feel like a hamster wheel, can it? So, today I'm here to remind you it doesn't have to be this hard. You really can keep your marketing simple, effective, and yes, fun again. We're going to talk about what a streamlined marketing strategy looks like, why simplicity is key, and I'll give you some practical ways to start simplifying today. Plus, if this resonates with you, keep listening because at the end, I've got something special for you coming up that could be exactly what you need. Now, let's start by asking, why does marketing feel so overwhelming? A lot of us think that we have to be everywhere to stay relevant, right? We scroll and we see others posting 5 times a day, sometimes 7 times a day. They're popping up on every platform, and we feel like we're behind if we're not doing the same. But here's the truth: more isn't always better. When you try to be everywhere at once, it's like taking on 3 full-time jobs. You're spread so thin that you can't give your best to anything. So, let me share a quick story here. I recently talked to a business owner who was posting on 4 platforms every single day. She was exhausted and didn't feel like she was getting that much engagement. And she started questioning if her content was even valuable. Well, we looked at her metrics. Guess what we found? 90% of her audience was on Instagram, and that's where she was getting the most engagement. So I suggested she pause everything else and just focus on Instagram. Within a month, she was getting better results and she was able to show up more genuinely and consistently where her audience actually was. So if you've ever felt that sense of overwhelm, that just like you can't get everything done, you're not alone. And you're not doing anything wrong. You just need a strategy. You need a strategy that aligns with your strengths, your audience, and your goals. So today I want to help you take a deep breath, let go of that noise, and create a strategy that actually feels manageable and is impactful. Now, let's talk about the power of simplicity. You've probably heard the saying, less is more, right? This concept is especially true in marketing. When you simplify your strategy, you're giving yourself the space to focus on doing a few things really, really well. And that's where the magic happens. Think about it this way: imagine you're planting a garden. If you plant seeds all over the yard, but barely water or tend to any of them, you'll get a lot of half grown plants. And I don't even have a great thumb, right? But we know this. We know this. But if you chose a few key spots and you care for them, you're going to see them flourish and grow. And that's the same for your marketing. Simplifying doesn't mean you're doing less just for the sake of doing it. It's about being intentional. When you're intentional, you can double down on what works and you'll start to see a real difference in how people respond to you. Plus, with fewer things on your plate, you can build a routine that feels sustainable and is energizing. Now, here's a fun fact: studies show that consistency builds trust with your audience. We've talked about this. So, if you've listened to this podcast or if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, you've heard me share that before. Consistency builds trust with your audience. By showing up in a manageable way, you're building a stronger connection over time. People are going to feel more inclined to engage with you when they see you on a regular basis. And consistency doesn't mean that you need to be posting constantly. It's about quality over quantity. And I get people who get that messed up, right? They think consistency, I need to do it all the time. No, you just need to be consistent. Whatever you can manage, if it's posting 5 times a week, great. If it's posting 3 times a week and 2 days a week you share a story, great. Whatever that looks like for you, whatever you can handle, that's what you want to do because it's quality over quantity. All right. So let's get into 3 common pain points that lead to marketing overwhelm. And of course, some practical ways that we can simplify them. Pain point number 1 is, we've talked about this already, feeling pressure to be everywhere. I know that feeling. You see everyone on every platform and you think you need to be there too. But here's my challenge for you. Focus on 1 or 2 platforms where your audience is most active. I know you might be thinking, oh my gosh, Deanna, but what about the audience that's over here that I've been sending posts to? If they're not engaging with you, you're wasting your time anyhow. It's okay. Figure out where your ICA is, your ideal client avatar, where you're getting the most engagement, and pick 1 or 2. For me, it's Facebook and Instagram. For you, it might be LinkedIn and Pinterest. It's really yours. Don't listen to everybody else who's telling you, you need to be here. You need to be on TikTok. You need to be on Facebook. You need to be on Instagram. You need to be where your ideal client is. That's it. Now, imagine the relief of putting all that energy that you have into mastering just those 2 spaces or 1 space instead of trying to spread yourself thin across 5 different platforms. When you get comfortable on a platform, that's when you're able to show up consistently. You interact with your audience, and that makes an impact. I'll even share a quick exercise at the end to help you identify where your audience is most active. But let's get to pain point 2 first. That's creating content that just doesn't convert. Creating content that seems to go nowhere is exhausting, right? I mean, you put so much time in creating this content, and if nothing happens, if nobody engages, it's so frustrating. I want to encourage you to focus on value-driven content. Now, a simple way to approach this is to think about the top questions your clients ask. Pick 3 or 4 of those and create posts around them. Maybe you share a tip, maybe you tell a story. You can even highlight a client success related to each question. Content that speaks directly to what your audience is curious about has a much better chance of resonating and driving engagement. Plus, it simplifies things because you're no longer starting from scratch. You're working with what you already know and what they want to hear. Don't feel like you have to recreate the wheel every single time. You don't. You have that content actually already. You just don't realize it. It's the questions that people ask you. It's the conversations that you see happening in a Facebook group or somewhere online where your ideal client avatar is asking questions, which is revealing their pain points, and you have the solution. Write it down, jot it down, put it in a calendar, a spreadsheet, somewhere, a notebook, so that you can go back and reference that and create content around it. Now let's get over to pain point 3. And this is a big one. I see this all the time, guys. It's not having a clear plan. Not having a plan can lead to that daily panic of, what should I post today? I totally get it. And listen, I've been there. But creating a content calendar, it doesn't have to be complicated. Here's a simple framework, right? Pick 3 main pillars. Sometimes they're called themes. I usually call them pillars. And these pillars can be something like educational, inspirational, or personal. In fact, those are 3 that I use on my content calendar. You can pick whatever you want. Of course, one of them, you want to make sure that you are bringing value. Some people do want to show personal. I like showing personal so that people can get to know me and what I'm about, but you may not want to. And that is 100% okay. You don't have to. When you find out what those pillars are, rotate those throughout the week. For example, on Mondays, you can present a tip or some sort of a lesson. On Wednesday, maybe you share something personal or behind the scenes, and that could be boxing up or unboxing. It can be, preparing for your client or for a project that you're working on. And maybe Fridays can be something inspiring, right? They get people into the weekend and just have a lot of fun. That kind of schedule takes away the guesswork and it lets you focus on actually connecting with your audience. It simplifies things so much, guys. I can't even stress it, because let's face it, if you don't have that plan in place, a lot of times what happens, come on, be honest with me. You grab your phone because you know you need to post something, and you're scrolling looking for an image that might work with an idea that you have. And maybe you find an image and the idea still works, or maybe the image you really want to use it, but now you have a whole new idea, but you're doing it on the fly. It takes so much more time. If you have those pillars mapped out, just create 6 pieces of education, 6 pieces of inspiration, 6 pieces of personal, or whatever your pillars are, and fill in your whole month. Now, I want to take a minute to talk about a mindset shift that comes with simplifying, because mindset shift is so important. Many of us feel that if we're not constantly hustling, we're not doing enough. But here's what I've learned: simplifying your marketing isn't about doing less or slacking off. It's about working smarter. Think about this. When you run into somebody, maybe at a networking event, maybe somebody you haven't seen, you're at the grocery store, you run into them, and you ask each other, like, how have you been? What's the most common response? Oh, I'm so busy. I've been so busy. Am I right? Think back. Am I right? Because I hear it all the time, and I'm guilty of saying it. I'm so busy. And for whatever reason, we think being busy, we wear that like a gold badge, right? Oh, I'm busy. That means I'm working, I'm hustling, I'm doing all this stuff. It's really not that great, because we got into business to have that freedom, right? Whatever reason we got in, we wanted something. We wanted freedom of something, freedom of time, freedom of finances, freedom of whatever. Fill in the blanks, but some sort of freedom we were looking for. And when we say we're busy, it actually is kind of like, well, then, you don't have what you signed up to get. Listen, give yourself permission to slow down. When you give yourself permission to focus, to slow down, and to say no to the things that don't align with what you're doing, you're actually making space for the things that matter. Now, here's a bonus. Your audience can tell when you are genuinely invested in the content you're creating. They're more likely to engage with you and build that trust. So I want you to remember this. There's nothing wrong with saying, I'm only focusing on Instagram, or I'm going to email my list once a week. You're not doing less. You're doing what matters more. That's so important. Remember that. So I have a challenge for all of you. Here's my challenge. And I would love to hear your answers to this challenge, right? I want you guys to really do it. Feel free to email me or respond to me on Facebook. Tell me that you listened to this episode and this is what you decided. Okay? I would love to hear from all of you. So here's my challenge for the week. I want you to pick one way to simplify your marketing. Maybe it's focusing on just one platform. Maybe it's, I'm going to set up that basic content calendar that we talked about. In fact, I want to share something real quick with you. I use Metrical. I love Metrical. I think it's a great platform. But what I've recently done too, and it's working kind of good because I'm a visual person, I like to see everything in one spot, is I'm using Google Calendars. And I know it sounds so basic, and it is basic. But I've created a different calendar in my Google Calendars, and I've added one called Content Calendar. And in that, I've color coded whether it is social media posts, whether it's my podcast, whether it's a newsletter I'm sending out, whether it's a theme or a holiday or a launch, whatever I'm working on, it's all color coded so I could see it visually in one spot. Now, that's how simple it can be. But back to the challenge, right? Whether it's focusing on a platform or setting up that basic content calendar, I want you to choose one thing and take a small step, see how it feels, and just do it. Let me know what you chose. I would love to hear from you. Now, listen, if this conversation is hitting home, I have something you're going to love. On November 13th, I'm hosting a workshop called The Simple Show Up System. It's a low stress plan to stay visible every week. In this workshop, I'm going to walk you through the steps to create a clear, manageable plan so that showing up doesn't feel like it's a full-time job, because who wants that? This is all about helping you stay consistent without burning out. And I would love for you to join me. I'm going to link the details in the show notes so you can make sure to check it out and save your spot. But you can also visit me at deannahinsz.com/, let me see here, simple show up system. One word, no dashes in between. That's it. It'll take you right to the page with all the information. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Remember, you don't need to be everywhere, and you don't need to do all things to make an impact. Sometimes simplifying is the most powerful step you can take. Until next time, keep showing up for yourself and your business, and keep being unstoppable. See you guys.